You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
Hi, I'm Jay Farner, CEO of Quicken Loans, America's largest mortgage lender. Spring will be here soon, so if buying a new home is on your to-do list, right now is the time to call Quicken Loans. Learn about which mortgage options make sense for you and get a jump on your competition. With our exclusive Rate Shield approval, the low rate you lock today is protected for up to 90 days while you shop for your new home. With a Rate Shield approval, if rates go up, your low rate stays locked. But if rates go down, you get that new, even lower rate. Either way, you win. Talk to us today at 800-QUICKEN or go to rocketmortgage.com to take advantage. Here's another great reason to work with us. For a record 9 years in a row, J.D. Power has ranked Quicken Loans highest in the nation in customer satisfaction for primary mortgage origination. Again, to lock in today's low mortgage interest rate and get the security of our exclusive Rate Shield approval, call us today at 800-QUICKEN or go to rocketmortgage.com.
For J.D. Power award information, visit jdpower.com. Rate Shield approval only valid on certain 30-year fixed-rate loans. Call for cost information and conditions. Equal housing lender. License in all 50 states. NMLS number 3030.
Hi, welcome to the Subway ad for the new Sesame Ginger Glazed Chicken Signature Wrap. How would you like it?
I'll take a...
Sports announcer at home?
Yeah, how'd you...
We just know.
My wife picks up the new Signature Wrap. It's got double the rotisserie-style chicken mixed with a sesame ginger glaze. She appears annoyed at me, but she shrugs it off. Those sweet and savory flavors are calling her name. She lifts the wrap and she takes the bite! Incredible! And now she's closing the door on my... Subway, make it what you want.
Limited time only at participating restaurants. Double meat based on average 6-inch sub.
I'm little teapot, short and stout.
Here is my handle and here is my spout.
No, Dad, like this. When I get all steamed up, then I shout, tip me over and pour me out.
This is WWE superstar Roman Reigns. It only takes a moment to make a moment. Take time to be a dad today.
Visit fatherhood.gov, brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
I'm Liz Neuer-Feld. It is Monday, May 20th. Welcome to For Immediate Release. I am joined again tonight by my co-host, the one and only Billy O'Reilly. Hey, Billy.
Hey, Liz. Hey, Liz Neuer-Feld. How are you?
You know, I never call myself that, but you call me that when you introduced the show, so I figured I'd show some respect.
I started doing that because I knew you for so long as Liz Neuer, and I knew you as Liz Feld, but I thought that some people would have known you from the political world as Liz Neuer, so I put you all together, and they probably think, who is Liz Neuer-Feld? But
and
they
why
know.
do you care? And why should I care is what they're thinking.
I care. We care. Lots of us do.
Well, you know, changing your name can be a great thing or a terrible thing. I wonder if that's like, you know, do men ever think about that? Wow, God, getting married, you know, because you can draft a lot. I mean, dodge a lot of things if you change your name. At least for a while, you can.
Oh, I definitely thought about changing my name. I did. My brother suggested Sean Hannity, but yeah, that wasn't in play either.
Did your dad ever call you William when he was angry or disgusted?
He didn't. My grandfather was a Will, and so I thought about it when Bill O'Reilly exploded onto the scene. It wasn't a problem until I started doing a column under the name Bill O'Reilly, and that was for Newsday, which I still write for, and that's in his backyard. And so that became a disaster, even though the photo was different. So then I went full William FB. But I could have gone like I thought about in college they called me Baba, from the Who, Baba O'Reilly, but that just seemed too casual. So then I thought about just go Tom Jones or something, but I guess that was taken as well. So I'm stuck. But I like Liz Neuerfeld. I think it works. You sound like a PhD. You want to add on the end?
Oh my gosh, it is hard to give up your name. I love my family, and it's a lot easier, the shorthand anyway, to be Liz Neuer. But I do think it's hard for the kids. These days they grow up in a household where there are a lot of last names floating around. Our mailbox has almost 5. Yeah, not good.
I remember my wife said, that she would never change her name except for if she married me, and then of course she didn't. You know what I mean? So we have names galore in our house, lots of them. But somehow we were going to come up with it, just make one up, but I really wouldn't do that. So.
No.
Yeah.
Although you can do what you want now.
That's right. Unless it was like like Livingston Frankenstein Ha or something. You just go wild with it. But I guess not.
So I was just thinking before we got on the air that next Monday is the legal recognition or federal of Memorial Day, and I don't think you and I have talked about this recently anyway. But it just drives me crazy that we don't honor these holidays on the day. Memorial Day is May 30th.
Right.
And I know all of these local parades now are on the Thursday or the Wednesday before Memorial Day weekend, because people leave town and, the mayor or whoever is the supervisor decides, we want to turn out, so we'll have our parade on such and such a day. And there's just something about that. It irks me. And I don't know how. I've actually never asked any active duty or veterans how they feel about it, but I do have friends, particularly those in the fire department locally where I live, and it drives them crazy too.
It didn't drive me crazy, but now that you mention it, it does. I'm suddenly irked. No, it makes perfect sense. What should be done is it should be the national holiday on that day, and all stores should be shut down under penalty of shame of the greatest degree. Yeah. Almost like the old blue laws, and make it an actual Memorial Day. People should go to church and stuff, but I know that sounds about 100 years antiquated. But it's a good point, Liz.
And also, it's so interesting because, and we always sound like two crotchety people when we get on rants like this, but blame me because I started it. But I do find, Memorial Day was a time when everybody was actually in town, so you could go to the parade and have your neighborhood barbecues rather than leaving town for 5 days or 3 days or make it a long weekend. And when we talk about other things that have fed to the, I don't know if we're going to call it the destruction of, but the tearing apart of local communities and the importance of, neighbors and things, it's just another one of those examples.
Yeah, no.
We had the same parade and the same barbecue every year, my entire childhood, with the same neighbors.
Those traditions are great. You just reminded me of over the weekend. My daughter was speaking. She had a confirmation and a bat mitzvah on the same day to go to, and she had to say a few words at the bat mitzvah. And I was coming up with some ideas for her. And I was just looking. I always go back and look at kind of great quotes of history. And one of the quotes I ran into was when this is talking about us being two cranky old people. The quote was. Kids today are, completely ignorant. They don't understand it. They eat with their mouth open. They have no respect for authority. And the world is the lesser for it. And signed Socrates. Swear to God. I'd never seen that. I'd looked at quotes for years for various speeches for different elected officials and stuff. And it was like Socrates. It's so good, Neanderthal man, signed.
Well, do you have a big Memorial Day local parade in your town?
We do. We have a good parade. Actually, a very nice one. And there's a 4th of July. I live in a great town called Mount Kisco, New York, which is it's north of New York City, as you know, about maybe 45 minutes or an hour, depending on traffic. It can be a little bit more. And it's a really nice community. It's about 10,000 people. And interestingly, in the middle of our town is where George Washington and Lafayette, the French general, first met. And where their troops met. They all came off the ships from France or I guess Rochambeau, actually, not Lafayette, Rochambeau. And so it's a very patriotic town. And, the young kids go out on bicycles and they still put, the baseball cards or whatever they're using now in the spokes of the wheels and with flags and the rest of it. And so the Girl Scout shows up and the Brownies show up, and it's really very nice. And I remember what really affected me and maybe my youngest daughter, 12, who used to be in the parade. She was carrying the American flag for the Girl Scouts, or I think it was Girl Scouts, or maybe it was then still Brownies. And I said, watch what the police officers do when you walk by. And every time she walked by with the flag, these, giant men, certainly to her, all snap salutes. And she hadn't realized that she was carrying such a potent symbol. And and it really affected her, I think. And I know it got me. I was, knocking them back or choking them back. But so yeah, we'll have a nice parade here. I haven't thought these things always. I'm never ready for a holiday. Like I never plan in advance. Like I have no plans. Are you going away or doing anything fun?
Well, I'm going down to Florida to visit my close friends who live down there for the weekend, which I haven't done. And of course, maybe it's going to be 1,000 degrees because it's already May. So I am going to. Yes, I will be back for Monday, which is technically, I shouldn't say technically, it's the federal holiday, but it's not Memorial Day, but I'll be back by then. But our local parade is actually this Thursday night. So, and about 25 years ago, one of the former mayors here changed it to the Thursday before Memorial Day so people could go to their quote unquote weekend houses for the weekend. God forbid they stick around for anything local. So, so I'll be here. I'll be here. In fact, I hope to make it to the parade Thursday night.
I'm sure you wanted to change it back when you were mayor, but it's tough when those things settle into a routine.
It is very tough.
Yeah,
and it is very tough. People, is exactly right. So,
Liz, what do you make of big political news in New York today? The chairman of the Republican Party has switched from Ed Cox, who was Richard Nixon's son-in-law, actually, and those of a certain age will remember the Tricia Nixon Ed Cox marriage, the Rose Garden wedding. But he was in a competitive race. Although he has supported President Trump, there was another local chairman, a Buffalo chairman, who was probably more closely identified with Trump, who took over today. Ed Cox is going to go raise money for the president's reelection, but it seems to be kind of big headlines here. I'm not sure what it means. It's maybe a shift of power within New York State for the Republican Party is kind of moving north. It seems like about halfway down New York, or a little bit more than that, it becomes completely Democrat, and then upstate there's still pockets of Republicans. But it's definitely a changing party, and I think this reflects that.
Well, it does, and it's so interesting because for people who aren't in New York who listen, they might be thinking we don't want to hear about New York again. But I do think there are a couple of points that are germane to just what's going on in states all across the country. First of all, under Ed Cox's leadership, New York's Republican Party has not won one race for statewide office since 2002.
Right.
Now that's 18 years. And so, I don't care, how good you are at raising money or how good you are at backslapping or doing other things. But if you can't win a statewide race leading the party, there can be a lot of reasons for it down, rank and file, down on the ground. And also there can be a lot of reasons for it based on what's going on nationally with the party. But that right there, I think is disqualifying to be the leader of the party. You got to say, at least be able to be humble enough to admit, I wish I could change this, but I can't. So that's right there. Secondly,
I'm feeling a little complicit. I worked in a lot of those losing statewide races. But I should say in Ed's, and I know that you know Ed well, and in his defense, he won a lot of congressional seats back and local seats, county executive seats, those types of things. But you're right, the statewide, it's just become virtually impossible in New York. When Governor Pataki won in New York in 1994, the Democrats enrolled Republicans by about 1.5 to 1, and now it's 2.5 to 1. And according to the most local registration numbers, Democrats are enrolling at a rate of 10 to 1 in New York, and so it's really gone. It's really tough.
Well, it's just interesting because I think look at the Republicans lost the New York State Senate, which they had held for many years, as you know, and part of this had to do with the fact that they all, frankly, talk about collusion, colluded with Andrew Cuomo several years ago and agreed to look the other way on a number of issues, including the budget and the spending that's gone on in New York and the tax increases. So, and then the union issues and all. So, Ed didn't make that happen. The Senate Republicans did it on their own, and thinking that would help them. In the long run, all it did was give the Democrats what they want, and a bunch of these guys all got thrown out of office. So now these Republicans got nothing for actually selling out. So that in that regard, individually and collectively, they got what they deserved. Unfortunately, we got punished for it along the way. But I think, the big point here also about Ed Cox is, the president is very unpopular in New York. He can certainly raise good money here, and Ed has helped him and will continue to do that. I guess his new role is going to be, he's going on the Real Act for the president. But so the president will raise money here, but what about these other party chairmen around the rest of the country who are in the same, the president's popularity really varies dramatically depending on where you are. What do these other Republican Party chairmen do in different states where he's unpopular? And are they losing a lot of these other down ballot races, in addition to losing the statewide races because of the president? And has anyone else stepped aside or been thrown out? I mean, I don't know what's gone on at that level.
I'm really glad that you raise this, Liz. And it's if we're gonna have like an honest conversation, and I kind of chicken out on it sometimes. I've been critical of the president in the column that I do, but I don't do it that much on the show. And this isn't just about Trump. It's Republicans in states that are not conservative or not really Republican states are they're in a crossfire kill zone. I mean, we are just getting slaughtered. And it was, one of the reasons I've been probably howling about this presidency, and it does a lot of good things. I agree with a lot of the policy things. We'll get those caveats out there right from the beginning. It's been my job over the decades, and yours too, in different careers that you've held, to sell this stuff and to sell these ideas in states that are not hard red now, and it's become impossible now. And young people aren't registered Republican. I mean, not even close. They're fleeing the party like crazy. Women have fled the party. The registration numbers are just catastrophic and getting worse. Yet if you try and step out and warn the party, like some of us have done, the two of us here and others have done, you get fired upon for being a rhino, and you're no good, and you're a sellout. You're not supporting the president. And there's just no win here. You can't go, because it's not a left-right thing. The argument here isn't left-right. It's a tone, sales approach, long-term strategy. It could be left-right on issues like trade and not so much with China, but trade and other policies. But it's we're in an impossible situation right now in states like New York, in California, in all of New England, where I don't believe there's a single member of Congress now, Republican in New England, in New Jersey, in Pennsylvania, other states. It's brutal. And I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, we're all trying to figure it out, but nobody's figured it out.
Well, no one's figured it out. And also, until issues like immigration reform get solved at the national level, I don't think there's ever going to be any change. I think the states, like you just mentioned, New York, California, are going to continue to go very far left.
Right.
And immigration reform is just one of those examples. I mean, now let's look at the abortion bills that have passed in Alabama and Mississippi recently, or Georgia recently. I mean, how is that issue going to help moderate Republicans in parts of the country, in the Northeast, even though they're, and out west? How is it going to play? Even though those bills aren't passing in their states, the issue is front and center again.
It's front and center again, and also the reverse stuff on guns, on so many issues that really light people up. It's just become so hard to sell. And I keep thinking, the nature abhors a vacuum, that there's this vacuum that is being created, is now there, but nothing's filled it yet. And I know there's people like, the Federalist Party, which I'm very involved with, the Federalist Party of America Alliance, other groups, the Serve America movement, another group out west has tried some things that are working hard to try and fill that void, and perhaps that will happen, but it hasn't happened yet. It's just there's a market for those consumers that are neither angry right or certainly not liberal, and there's a market in between there, and it's going to have to get filled at some point. What's going to be the catalyst to fill it? I don't know. It's beyond me.
Is there an issue that you think the president can push that'd be important enough to outweigh or counter the other issues? I'll use immigration and abortion again. I'm not going to. Climate change is a whole, and Green New Deal is a whole separate.
I think
category,
the three. I think the three. I think maybe more than three, but just three immediately leap to mind. And number one is federal term limits. I think if you were to champion federal term limits, I know that his pollster, who I've worked with for many years, has done several polls on term limits. And I think federal term limits would be universally appreciated and liked. I mean, not universally, but about 80 some odd %.
Right.
Number two would be debt, like talking to the country about federal debt in a real way. It's not a popular issue, but I think he could get great chops for being a leader on that. And the third thing is, which he's talked about but never addressed, was inner city African American issues. The going after the poverty pimps out there, going after the Democratic Party really hard at paternalism that has largely destroyed whole swaths of the American population. And I always pray that Trump will go after that and triple down on it and really do it. But he hasn't yet. But I think those three alone would be really good. I think China is probably helping him as well. I think a lot of people agree that China's been a bad actor for a long time and needs to get its comeuppance. But I would say term limits, debt, and going after cyclical poverty in America as a symptom of really bad government, of big government. What about you?
What about employment and the unemployment rate figures? And you talk about the African American community, right? The lowest unemployment in decades for African Americans and other minorities. Is he going to get anywhere with anything? Does that matter? Never mind the other, the unemployment. The employment, at large. But does that help him at all? Does that even begin to? And is that part of what you're talking about with the inner city stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I think it definitely helps, and I'm not sure that that translates into lots of African American voters saying the job market feels better, so I'm going to vote for Trump. But it may dissuade a lot of people from being vehemently anti-Trump and out there knocking on their neighbors' doors and saying, let's get out there and knock this guy out. I think you have if you have a good economy, and you have a general good vibe out there, people aren't as anxious, obviously, to overturn what the status quo is. So I think in that regard, but I always thought that his greatest, I think a brilliant stroke for him would be to really go after African American voters. Not that he's going to get a majority, not that he's going to get even 30%, but he could probably start a real conversation in there, which he's had some conversations with Kanye West, who's a little bit out of his mind at times, but there's a conversation to be had. And if you're going to have a loon out there like Donald Trump, and he is a lunatic, however much he can be successful at times, that could broach a topic like this, he's custom made for it. Where he's going to break eggshells and knock, the China in the bull shop and all the other metaphors. I think there's a lot of room for growth in there, especially if he runs against a Joe Biden, where he's going to lose a lot of Catholic voters. He's going to lose a lot of white Democrats in the Rust Belt states. I think they're a safe pick would be Biden. I think Trump could go in there and pick off 15, 20% of the African American vote and have it make a difference.
So I'm glad you brought Biden up, because that's where I was going to go. So a couple of things on him. One is I've listened to a couple of his speeches over the weekend, and I think he looks terrific. He looks energetic. He's fit. He's, again, happy warrior Joe. But I have to say, I don't see a really compelling message there other than unity and rhetoric, and why don't we dial back the meanness? And you and I have talked about how people are exhausted from all of the chaos, but I also think they've become so immune to it that I'm not sure that I think that message was maybe a year old, or a year too late. Yep. And Trump, again, we've said this, Trump is who he is. No one's surprised anymore at what he says or how he says it. And there are things that are getting done. So for Biden to come out as the unity candidate, I'm not so sure he's going to win a primary that way. in a general, it'd be different. But he is literally running saying, Trump's mean. Trump's a divider. The other day, his whole speech was Trump's the divider in chief. Well, that's not a message. Right. It's not. And I watched Buttigieg last night on his, I don't know if you saw the Fox News town hall that he did.
How did they do on that? I did not see that.
Well, I thought he was fantastic. And I have to tell you, I was just reading a tweet that Brit Hume says. He said, and I quote, that Buttigieg is the most impressive, by far, candidate in terms of just raw political talent in the Democratic field. And he may be the most impressive candidate I've seen since the emergence of Barack Obama. And I watched him, Billy, for the full hour. And he answered every single question from why do you think you're qualified because you're the mayor of a small city in Indiana, to, how do you feel about the Alabama abortion bill, to how did your service in Iraq and Afghanistan, during the war, will that inform your approach to being the commander in chief? And everything in between. There was nothing he wasn't asked that he didn't answer. Now, some of the answers were a little more puffy than the others, but his tone is just as unifying, if you will, as Biden's. But he's got a I hate to say authenticity because it's such an overused word, but he's the real deal. He's very smart. He's articulate without being slick. I don't agree with what he didn't out and out defend the Alabama bill, but he did say when really pressed hard that these are very difficult decisions for women no matter what. And who are we to judge, how they should decide? Most of these circumstances are so rare, the late-term abortion and the post-war. So, but in the end, he just said it's a woman's right. She's got control. And of course, you got wild applause. I don't agree with that. But nonetheless, he answered it. And it wasn't a knee-jerk reflexive thing. It was actually very thoughtful. He immediately talked about what a horrible circumstance and situation that is. He didn't come at it from the angry women's rights thing. He talked about being a mayor, and where I just love this. He said he has gotten a 3 a.m. phone call. He's been held accountable every day during his entire term, but because he's in charge of every last issue, from the police force to first responders to quality of life stuff. Working with Pence when he was governor, they obviously didn't agree on a lot of stuff, but things got done. He's been a chief executive. So listen, he's 37. He's awfully young, but I tell you this much: he is far more credible to me, and I think he's going to be a much bigger. He will. If I had to predict, I would say he will be a finalist in the primary, if not the finalist.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. Yeah, I heard other people say it, and again, we talked about this on the last show. I think I'm trying to do the big overview this election cycle. And I think I see all the talent in Buttigieg. I mean, what I've seen of him was really impressive. And I've actually noticed that Brit Hume has several times said fairly wonderful things about him. But I think he'll be in the mix, but I think that he'll be decided he's just not ready yet. He's the best of the farm team coming up. And I would still argue, and I may be out of my mind and I may be completely wrong, and I think maybe we disagree on this one. If I were Biden, I would give nothing more than what he's putting out. I think if there were 5 candidates, it wouldn't be enough. But with 23 candidates, it's all he needs. I think nobody can really get traction of the other 22 with him leading right now. But for now, I don't know if he needs more. I think he's just safe enough where he has to look not too crazy left, but still keep some credibility. But I may be wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, it's obviously a strategy call that his team is figuring out. But does he need to fill in the box on policy, or can he stay vague? I think he can stay vague, but I may easily be proved wrong. You may be absolutely right on that.
Does that Hillary Clinton about how filling in that policy box works?
Right. Once you do, you're wide open. He's never going to be left enough. And then he's just going to be one of the 23. I think it needs to be Joe Biden and the other 22 candidates. If Joe Biden's one of the 23, then I agree with you. I don't think he shines, because the others that are more talented, they're younger, they're more progressive, and they're coming up with new ideas. But It'd be interesting to see how it plays out because you may be totally right. My gut would be if I were advising him, stay above it, stay above it, stay above it.
Yes. So it's interesting to me, Biden's, and this is what I say to me, read the paper, but I mean, Biden's emergence or his announcement was immediate, put him immediately head to head with Sanders, and he crushed him from day one, and there's no going back. I think Sanders is done.
Yep. Which I think is great news for Buttigieg. I think,
Absolutely. Yeah. That's exactly right. Bernie Sanders, I haven't heard anything about Beto O'Rourke in the last couple of weeks.
No, the only stories I see about Beto O'Rourke is what happened to Beto O'Rourke.
What happened to Beto? And he was getting his ears. You saw that. His last haircut, he was getting like his hair tweezed out of his ears. I mean, what is wrong with
We actually did that in the last New York gubernatorial race, but we did it as a gag, and I thought maybe they had copied us, where what we had our candidate, Mark Molinaro, who was in a huge uphill fight. He was getting his haircut, but the idea was we had somebody film it. We actually didn't tell him. We told him we want you to win this barber's vote. And so he was talking about economic policy with the barber the whole time. He wouldn't shut up, and we got it on film. But just getting your hair, like, it was weird. Just getting your hair cut in the nose. I mean, that was just strange. I agree with that. Yeah. But you're right. Warren has had some movement, and you've been saying that was going to happen. That's definitely happened a little bit. And, but I think you're right. I think Sanders there's not enough vote, and young people aren't going to him like last time. They're dividing up between Warren, Buttigieg, a little went to Beto, and then Warren, and then Harris, who I guess is. Yeah.
Did you hear Gillibrand's comments about asylum yesterday? No.
What desperate thing is she saying?
Well, it's just perfect. You won't be surprised to hear this. So, there was a report about how the morale of the Border Patrol agents is way down because they're being forced to actually go and deal with these families who have crossed the border, and they're not on the border themselves anymore now. They're dealing with where to put people, the detention centers, and monitoring all of that instead of actually interdiction at the border. So the question about what to do about asylum was raised, and Gillibrand was asked, I guess, at a rally or by a reporter, and she said, and that she thinks everyone should be allowed to come in. And then they can be assigned a lawyer. They should be able to settle in a city with their families, be assigned a lawyer, and then have to go to court to have their case or situation adjudicated. And part of the issue here was some of the bad, information surrounding how many people cross and actually never do go to court. Because it's not true that none of them ever go in to follow the process. But a good third of them don't. They never report, once they register.
Yeah, they jump, right.
They jump. But she said most people are good people, and that every single person should be able to come in. She said asylum for everybody, and then they can all get a lawyer. Sure, that would be you and I would be.
In New York, just for the listeners, in New York, we do pay for their lawyers. We pay for the legal aid lawyers for illegal immigrants. Which,
Yep. Meanwhile, other people can't afford. Who actually are here legally, who need a lawyer for something and can't afford it, can't get one. So the whole thing is preposterous, but she's just now she's at zero. I don't think there's been one poll where she's ranked above 1%.
It's amazing how far the pendulum has swung. Although I was going to say how far the center has moved, because I'm not saying she's center. She's certainly not. But if Kirsten Gillibrand had made that recommendation 10 years ago, she would have looked insane. And right now, that's just run of the mill in the Democratic Party. I mean, she would have looked insane. 10 years ago, the Democratic Party, and I'm not the first one to be saying it, was calling for a border wall. It was get the wall, fix the border, seal the border, and then we deal with the immigration. That was the natural deflect answer for any politician. And I would media train tons of them over the years. And when you got the immigration issue, the safe answer was we need to seal the border and then we'll deal with it. And that was that was the punt. Right. And now for the Democrats, the punt is almost we need to let anybody in and give them lawyers like Gillibrand. It's craziness. It just defies common sense. If that's where their primary is, they've got a real problem.
So do you know when the first debate is, and what is it that threshold still, you need, is it 65,000 individual donors, or I forget what it was to even qualify to get on stage?
They're going to have way too many. I'm not sure when the first one is. I know it's upcoming. It's in the next several weeks, I think, right? Like maybe 5 weeks from now. But if that's the threshold, they could have 18 candidates on stage, which is, what do you do if you're one of 18 on stage? Like, okay, so I'll make you the advisor, Liz. Like, how would you advise a candidate if there are 18 or 23 or whatever, 15 candidates on stage, and you have such limited time? What would you advise them?
Well, I guess we have a perfect example for that. I mean, we had Trump.
Yeah, just disrupt.
Now, remember, so there were the two tiers of debates. Remember, like Lindsey Graham and Rick Santorum, and a few of them were qualified. They were sort of the undercard.
George Pataki and others. Yeah, exactly. Yep.
But there were times where there were a dozen of them on stage between Christie and Rand Paul and Carly Fiorina and Marco Rubio, and I can't believe I'm remembering this one.
Jeb. Yep.
Jeb. You have to say one outrageous thing or say nothing. Honestly, you almost have to say, because I don't think those debates matter worth a wick. I mean, no one's breaking through unless they say something really
right. You have to be dramatic, or you have to walk off stage in a huff. I mean, do something that's going to steal the headline, and that that's not really healthy.
Or it's not, and usually it's really what it is a takedown of one of the other guys who you are blocking and tackling against, right out in the Iowa or New Hampshire. So I mean, the audience at large might not know. But, look what Chris Christie did to Marco Rubio. But that was a little farther along in the process. But, right, would you say that one of the strategies would really be just go after
Biden,
rival?
Right? I mean, it's going to be go after Biden, and whoever gets the best shot in at Biden will be the winner of the debate, right? Unless nobody does, and then Biden's the winner, I would think.
So do you think I know what the polls show that he's the far and away the front runner, but do you think that's just name ID? And
I think it's name ID, but I do think, and I'm not, I'm not positive, I'm just speculating, but I think it's name ID, but I also think it's electability. I think older Democrats and the ones that aren't out there with holding signs at demonstrations and that kind of stuff, I would think intrinsically believe that Biden has the best shot against Trump, and they're going to stick with a safe pick no matter what, no matter what anyone does, no matter how flashy other candidates are, they're going to stick with somebody that they think can take them on. But it could be just name ID, but we'll find that out after the debates. Obviously, name ID will be more equally distributed. But but there are a couple out there. You're right. I mean, I think Cory Booker's I think he could make a move at some point, even though I'm not really a fan. But he's got the potential. He's certainly bright enough and sharp enough as a candidate to make a big move in a debate. Warren certainly, because I think you're right. She comes from substance anyway. We don't like the substance, but she does have some. Certainly Kamala Harris, who apparently is now moving more to the right in her positioning. That her team believes that just bashing Trump is not the best strategy for her. That she needs to move a little bit more in Biden's direction. And I don't know whether that's a VP bid or what.
Right. She and Biden seem to have a little back and forth going here. I don't know if she feels like she can get away with it by being more aggressive because no one's going to attack her because she's a woman. I don't know what's going on behind that, but I don't know. She's got staying power. She's been consistent from the beginning. I think just in her approach, in her look, in her style, in her attitude. I don't know how she blew past. I don't know where she is against Elizabeth Warren head to head, or not.
Yeah, she's about 2 behind. I think she's at like 8 or something or 6 or and Warren's a little bit ahead of that.
She seems to get pretty flattering coverage.
Yeah. What about? I'm sorry, I'm going to throw it out there. What about Mayor Bill de Blasio from New York, who had the war? I felt sorry for him. I felt bad for him, and I see Mayor de Blasio. He's ideologically so to the other side of me, and I went to NYU with him. I didn't know him, but we were there at the same time. And he was literally working for the Sandinistas in Nicaragua, and of course, famously honeymooned in Havana. But personally, he's a nice guy to deal with. Personally, I see him sometimes at a TV station in New York, and have encountered him over the years. But he just got bludgeoned stepping in, and I think it's partially deserved. But I still felt badly for him. I mean, the New York press had such a field day on him. Everybody went after him. The New York Post headline was "De Blasio unites America," in hating Bill de Blasio,
right?
Something like that.
Yeah. Well, you and I agree that the personal stuff is always the worst. I can't stand it. But I have to say, he's a classic example for me of someone who has some hell of a nerve running. He has driven New York City into the ground. It is
I know.
take one day and drive over Manhattan or any of the boroughs, and we've talked about this, ad nauseum. The unsupervised construction, the subways that don't run on time, that are filthy, their homelessness worse than ever. Look at the public schools crumbling to the ground. What has he done that qualifies him to be president of the United States? It's staggering to me. It's not even a lack of humility. It's beyond that. It's the hubris that he thinks, and not to mention that he's completely out of step with people on policy stuff, but just as a chief executive, he's a failure. A failure.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't understand that either. I don't know what would make some of these candidates get into the race. It's like, where do you get the cojones to get it? Like, who do you think you are? There's a little bit of that. And it hurts to say it because I can only imagine being that person and going through that humiliation, but obviously they have a thick enough skin to do it. But it's, what are you thinking? How could you possibly be thinking of running for president? Because I think you're right. He's been a total failure as a mayor. He's been just awful.
And who do you think who told him to run? Do you think?
I think he did. I think it's in him. I mean, he was shortly after being elected mayor, right after Mike Bloomberg in New York City in 2013. I can't even remember the year. I think 13. He was out in Iowa doing stuff. He thought he was going to be the great progressive, and a little bit he was ahead of the pack at that time. The Democratic Party hadn't gone so left wing, and he was leading the charge. But he thought he was going to be the big progressive. He was going to L.A. and he was going to other places, and he just doesn't have it. A leader has it or he doesn't. Like Buttigieg, like you're right. You can see it off the bat. He's got it. Obama, he had it. Reagan had it. Certain people, not just elected officials, but certain leaders just have that quality. And de Blasio's never had it. I mean, he won the New York City mayoral race with a very small percentage of voters. It was a multi-candidate field in the Democratic primary. And he snuck in Working Families Party, which is a very left-wing party that kind of wags the tail that wags the Democratic Party in New York. Got him in there, but with a very, very low turnout. It was about 5% of voters or something crazy like that. And he was able to win re-election against a Republican in New York City, which isn't tough in this environment. But he just never had that. He never had that. I've got it. I'm in charge here. That feeling. So, like, I don't know what he's thinking. But maybe he just wants a little bit of publicity. I have no idea. He's not up for vice president. He's not up for. I don't see him as a cabinet official. I just don't get it.
I don't get it either. And I've never seen any kind of collaboration that he's done with anybody else. I've never seen him share the spotlight with anyone. I've never seen him problem solve with anybody. I don't know. I feel like he really is on an island all his own. I also find he's very secretive, and there's all stuff about his campaign finance. I mean, we go on and on, which will bore the audience to death. But
so that's just and again, and the same thing. I just want to say one more time. He's actually a very nice guy in person, and it's tough. But I think you're right. He just falls into the field of 23, instantly. That's not going to help anything. And
what do you make of the fact that these Democrats are refusing to do town halls on Fox? Buttigieg did it. Elizabeth Warren came out the other day very aggressively saying never in a million years would she do it because Fox represents, awful, evil people. I guess she has failed to realize that if she got elected, half of those all of those awful, evil people would be people she needed to serve. But it's interesting. I guess Beto O'Rourke has said he would do it, but I think most of the other candidates.
It's so short-sighted. I know Bernie Sanders did it because Bernie Sanders understands that his voter and the Trump voter are first cousins, if not the same thing. It's so short-sighted to skip that audience. I mean, it's a very large audience. It's the biggest among the cable networks. And, just principle, we want to be able to share information back and forth and still have the opportunity to persuade people that don't agree with us. But for the populist Democrats, going on Fox makes all the sense in the world because they're talking to populist Democrats that are voting Republican. It seems crazy not to do it. I think Warren, it's, you could see the request comes in, the reporter calls the staff, are you going to go on the Fox thing? And the staff of, all the kind of liberal consultants are in there saying, no, we can't at all. One person is saying, no, we should talk to them. And no, we can't. And they, they're thinking about it as a 1 day or 1 hour story that, Warren rejects the Fox News invitation. That doesn't get you anything. Right. That's just a blip. The chance to talk to that audience is worth much more than that. I always told candidates that were invited, Republican candidates, you're invited to an African American church, and that the vote is going to be, probably 95-5 Democrat to Republican. Absolutely go to that church. Of course you go there. Of course, first of all, it makes you a better person. It breaks down some of the barriers. You do win some voters over. There's not, you take some of the tension out if there's any tension in the air. I don't just mean African American. If it's a liberal organization, if it's ACLU, whatever it is, get out there and talk to everybody. It seems nuts not to, but I think it's short-sighted, Liz. I agree. That's a great point to raise, and I'm glad Buttigieg is thinking about it. I think Sanders was definitely right to go on.
Yeah, I agree. And also, what are you afraid of, frankly? I mean, what do you think you're making a statement by saying you reject the bias of Fox News and they're right-leaning this and that? I mean, it's just silly. I mean, first of all, you're going to have to answer these questions for the whole election, whether you're on the Fox News town hall or not. Why don't you do it in that format and in that forum? You get a much better chance of getting a hearing and more than 30 seconds to answer a question like you only have on a debate stage.
That's right. I think some of them are probably mad that Fox News came up with a great idea to invite them. I mean, it was a perfect play by Fox News. If it's seen just as a conservative or right-leaning or populist-leaning station, it's a perfect move for them to be inviting every Democratic candidate and giving them a full hour. I mean, that's a brilliant thing for them to offer. But it is really what they do. I mean, Fox has always been pretty good about that. And Fox's debates in the Republican primary were some of the hardest ones at all the Republican fields. They weren't playing around. I mean, they never pussyfooted there. It wasn't layup questions. So some things they do really well, right, and they really, really do fairly. And I think this is fair, and maybe that drives the Elizabeth Warrens crazy, because she doesn't want to give them or play into it and give them more credit. But it's to her detriment, I think, and I think you probably agree.
I do. And like I said, I mean, I just think they should just treat these things as another day that they have to do something, and participate. The story becomes bigger when they don't do it. It's just, I mean, how bad?
Liz, what do you think? Just to switch topics a little bit, I was thinking this before Maureen Dowd's column yesterday in the Times, but I was thinking it already, and I'm curious on your take. How do you think that the president did on? Do you think he won or lost ground by looking like the one who didn't want to go to war with Iran? I mean, that's still ongoing, I should say, in current tense, that he looks like the level head in the administration. Do you think it helps him, or do you take the approach that he keeps making statements and then not backing them up, which kills his credibility internationally?
But I think that's his whole MO, is to keep doing the bait and switch. And because part of that is that means he's left every single option open. I think when he makes statements like he said this morning, right? He just said they will be annihilated if there's an attack, whether it's on our allies or on us directly, they will be annihilated and wiped out the face of the earth. I think that's pretty much where Trump stands on that period.
Right?
And I don't know that anything else matters, right? I don't think there's no such thing as nuance. That's why I wouldn't try to read the tea leaves with him, or not tea leaves, but I wouldn't even try to parse what he says vis-a-vis what Pompeo says or Bolton or anybody else. When he says, I want to annihilate them, I'll wipe them off the face of the earth, I take Trump at his word. Now, he might not do it. It might just be Trump. But it's not dissimilar from the approach he took with Kim Jong, right?
He goes to, right, I'm going to, fire and fury or whatever it was. And then it goes to, we're in love with each other and don't tell anybody, right?
Rocket Man, he's my friend and I trust him. I do think people, I think even more than North Korea, I think the Iranian threat is something that the average guy in the street worries about.
I think there's a preconceived notion because of the 1980 stuff, or 82 or 83.
That's right.
Right. Where,
Exactly.
Americans remember that
Exactly.
and they're predisposed to not like Iran and to not trust them for good reason.
Yeah.
I'd like having a John Bolton in there. I think you should have advisors that are as hawkish as possible, and that the president should be the force that holds them back. But I know a lot of people don't like Bolton, and there are people that I respect that don't like Bolton. I've always liked him because I think you want someone that has all those options on the table all the time to scare the bejesus out of your enemies.
Yeah.
It was very, Reagan was very much like that. But the trouble is that you're right. Trump is so volatile you can't figure him out. Over the weekend, I was thinking, he had a great weekend where he's coming across as the one that wants to soothe the tensions. And in another administration, I would say it was concerted that Bolton played the bad cop, and then the president got to play the good cop, and they have this all down. And then you're right. Then Trump launches into, I'm going to annihilate your country this morning. And you think, what the heck is going on over there?
Yeah. Do you think Trump, you're going to laugh when I ask this question, but that he just talks too much, period? On any given day, he's responding to everything from George Papadopoulos to Michael Cohen to Justin Amash to his financial records to Don McGahn being subpoenaed to Iran to when he's going to announce his reelect, hold his reelect rally to I do, kidding aside, we used to talk about sometimes his MO about, creating chaos was a good thing, right? Because to change the conversation, get the press off whatever he didn't want them talking about, collusion, whatever. But I'm just wondering now if it's gotten a little.
It's funny. I know we had that conversation 4 years ago or 6 years ago even about President Obama, where really early on in his administration, I remember having a phone call with you. And you came out of the Reagan Bush White House, which was pretty buttoned up, at least from the outside. And if the president had something to say, it was a big deal. And you would prepare for it, and it would be parsed, and it would be discussed, and it would be planned, and it would be released, in that kind of way. And President Obama was more kind of with the age. He went out there and started commenting on everything, NCAA basketball. I mean, every day he was out there. And he started doing those campaign rallies that now President Trump does as well. And I remember you and I talking about, is he overexposed? This is in his first term.
Right.
Obama, his words don't matter that much anymore because he never shuts up. And we're at that now, maybe times 10, although it's more through tweets and the rest of it. I think 100%. Do you think any administration can go back to being to being, sparse with it. Presidential. That's a good word. That's not the word I was going for. But yes, I like to think that you could be, God, there's a word I'm thinking of, just, kind of, cheap with your language, like, really selective. But I don't know if that's possible in this world, but of course it is. Of course it is. Other people can do the talking, and you could stay and wait to say things of weight.
Yeah, I think that I'm not playing. We shouldn't blame this on social media because that's not what it is. These guys are just. It's very hard to stop what you're doing, look and say, "Oh wow, the president's on TV now. I'm going to hear what he has to say." Here comes some edict or some, presidential pronouncement that will have some impact, whether it's war
or the Challenger or the space shuttle, that kind of thing. Right?
Space shuttle, right. And I'm not even talking about credibility. It's really to me more about stature. And how is it possible that right now, and I guess this does go to cable news, that you can have Adam Schiff or any Matt Getzik, take any Republican, doesn't matter, any member of Congress on TV all day getting the same amount of airtime as the president of the United States, or not the amount of airtime, getting the same be given the same distinction almost as when the president says something. When did that happen?
Yeah, there's I don't know when it started, but it's no question it's there. One of the things that annoys me most in campaigns, which and I can't bear doing within campaigns, is every time something happens, every candidate for office or incumbent feels like they have to comment on it. Every time, someone dies, every time there's a shooting someplace, every time there's everything, it's just like, have you commented? Are you commented? I wouldn't comment at all if it were my druthers. It would be, you wait till you have something to say. And if someone, beats you up for not saying anything, still don't say anything. You know what I mean? Just, it's language has become so cheap now. And, but you're right. You could have, Nancy Pelosi or anybody else out there, or Harry Reid in his day out there, or Schumer. I mean, they hammer all day long and they get equal treatment with the president, and they're not equal.
They're not equal. You know what I think might have done it? And this is something of all the peeves I have. This really is it. After the State of the Union, there's always the quote unquote response from the other party. And when the hell did that? I've just said hell twice tonight. When did that start? It used to be that the president gave his State of the Union, and there would be news commentary and analysis and blah blah blah. But the idea that immediately after, this is like the old Crossfire show. No. The president just spoke, and that again is I just think it goes beyond respect. I think it's just a level of, it's not, and not everything is politics, right? And that takes it squarely into the partisan arena.
That's right.
Right away.
That's right. And I think having the response perhaps made the States of Union more partisan. Like you knew that you were going to have to get your side out because they were going to respond, and vice versa.
Yeah. That you and the Democrats, it was the Democrats this time, but it's been when the Republicans, when Obama was there, they'll take their most partisan, pit bull and throw them on for, 7 minutes to bark and counterpoint. There's talk about no sense of unity. Can't we all just discuss what's going on in the country?
Yeah, but now you have the third thing. You have the Republican, you have the Democrat, and you have Bernie Sanders. Comes out there and I guess gives the socialist response. Yeah. By the way, have you had a chance to see the new National Review edition, which is Against Socialism is the cover, and it's a wonderful read. I hope every young person in America would love them to get a copy. It's just a series of essays talking about socialism and just setting it straight. It's terrific. It's worth picking up, and it's available online as well. But it's a reminder of just how inefficient and awful and immoral socialism is. As if we can't tell from looking at Venezuela. But anyway, Bernie Sanders gives that socialist response, or whatever he likes to call it.
Well, by the way, circling way back to the politics then of the election, do you think that there's any chance that the Sanders actually being an independent is what kills him in this primary?
I don't think so.
It's not.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think they have him as a Democrat. I don't think it really matters that much. I think he's got I think he had that young person base. They love going for the old guy for some reason. It was kind of cute or trendy. You know what I mean? It was like, we'll go for the old guy from Brooklyn. Yeah. But now they have real and other choices, and so. I think that's it. I think Bernie Sanders is pretty much finished. I mean, he's not going to go away tomorrow, but he's done his part. I mean, he's done the damage that he's going to do. Maybe he moves up in a poll or two. I know he and Biden there's a poll out today saying they're effectively tied in Iowa. But I don't think he's going to really make much of a run, but we'll see. Liz, any final thoughts? I think we're about to hear Ray Charles again.
I think my final thought would be that I have to confess, I think I'm the only person I know, maybe I'm the only person on the planet who did not watch Game of Thrones. I haven't seen one episode. I couldn't begin to tell you what's happened. I'm not even sure I'm ever going to be able to carve out the time in my life to binge watch from beginning to end.
That makes two of us.
It didn't appeal to me.
That makes two. Maybe I didn't watch one. I got yelled at by people for not watching it. But I thought if I'm gonna binge on something like that, I want something with real history or something. Not just make believe.
Yeah. That sounds a little too violent for me too. I mean, 24 was one thing because I can watch Jack Bauer
you
every
and my
day
wife.
for the rest of my life. I'm in love with
Once I heard about a dragon, that was
Jack
it for me.
Everyone's against Jack Bauer.
Yeah.
Everyone's exactly. So that would be my final thought, and also just to wish everybody a happy Memorial Day. I don't know that we'll have a show next Monday. We haven't even talked about it yet, but it's really May 30th. But if you're stuck honoring the holiday on May 27th, like the rest of the country, please go out and salute your service members and your first responders and people here who are doing or have done.
Get those flags up in the cemeteries.
Really
That's right.
Work.
Well, anyway, thank you, everybody. Thanks everybody for listening.
Exactly.
Good night.
Yep. Good night, everybody. Thank you.